All right, hello. Today we're going to be talking about content-based instruction, or CBI, which is a method of teaching language through also teaching content. So with this method of teaching, the curriculum is built around the integration of both content and the target language, where the target language functions as a communicative tool for the content, and the forms of the target language are not given an instructional focus. So while integration between content and the language is taking place, the language does play a secondary role in the construction of the syllabus, which is based in content. So just to be clear, when we're discussing content here, what we mean is the subject matter that is being learned, which could be academic, functional, or otherwise. For example, content could be vocation specific, or content could be subject areas such as mathematics or social science in an academic setting. Here, the target language functions as a tool to convey this subject matter, along the way, the target language is refined and practiced. So, pedagogically, content-based instruction is built on the theory of communicative language teaching, where meaningful communication and the exchange of information are considered foundational to a student's success in acquiring the target language. So you may recognize some of these foundational principles of building on what the student already knows and adding comprehensible inputs just beyond their current proficiency level from linguist Stephen Krashen's ideas on language acquisition from the early 80s. In fact, his theories do provide context to the pedagogical application of CBI. But to build on this further, Donna Brinton and her colleagues published a number of papers from the late 80s on that posit language development is facilitated through inputs that require both language and information. This is to say that the target language will be more successfully acquired if it is acquired as a means of also acquiring other non-language information. This method is also thought to reflect the learner's motivation for language acquisition more directly. It is often for some specific or more broad communicative context in which the student desires to participate that motivates their language learning process. Of course, we know if a student desires to learn the language and feels their needs are reflected in the curriculum, there is a much lower barrier for students learning as motivation has already been established. So Brinton and her colleagues discussed three general frameworks for CBI instruction, and these are theme-based instruction, sheltered content instruction, and adjunct language instruction. As a brief overview of these three general frameworks, theme-based instruction is most widely used because of its adaptability to existing models in the classroom, as well as its versatility. A specific topic or theme of relevance and interest serves as the central point of the curriculum, around which the students will acquire the specific type of language needed to discuss and explore the topic. This is the type of instruction that I will demonstrate later in the video. Sheltered content instruction is primarily focused on a student's limited proficiency in the target language and can be seen in programs that separate native speakers from L2 students, in effect sheltering these L2 students and providing texts of suitable difficulty that may not be on par with the content with which native speakers are concurrently encountering. We see this commonly in grade school settings that take an immersion approach with their ESL students. Lastly, adjunct language instruction expands the idea of integrated language and content curriculum by spanning two separate courses, one focusing on language and the other focusing on the content. For this method to be truly successful, obviously both courses must be very strongly linked, and the instructors of each course must coordinate their pace and their day-to-day instruction very effectively. However, the student is ultimately receiving a language-based syllabus with some content in one classroom, and a content-based syllabus with some language practice in the other. This method is most appropriate when the L2 student has the advanced language skills such that would allow them to participate in a content-based syllabus alongside native speakers with such little language focus. All right, so we'll talk a little bit now about my activity example. To start with, my detailed student population profile. We're going to be looking at 8 to 10 adult language learners at an American community college, ages varying from the mid-20s on upwards, no cap. These students each have green cards or are lawful permanent residents in the United States and are participating in a citizenship course geared towards preparing them for the U.S. citizenship exam and interview. They are intermediate English speakers who are much more comfortable communicating in their native language, but since they have resided in the United States likely for a number of years and possibly held limited employment during that time, they do have some background functional language proficiency. Native languages of these students will inevitably vary quite widely, and for simplification purposes, we'll say this class meets for 2 hours once a week. So, language objectives for the class. We want these students to be able to effectively comprehend and appropriately respond to all of the 3 portions of the United States citizenship exam. This includes the N400, which is primarily personal information, the American civics portion, and the interview. In other words, we will be focusing on reading, writing, and speaking as specifically required by the format of the USCIS exam and interview. So, lesson plan for the day, we're going to say that this is mid to end of the quarter for this class. We'll start off with some housekeeping, and then during the first 30 minutes of class, we will practice basic questions from the N400 that could also be asked during the interview. I will go around to each student and ask them a question to which they will respond. We will go around the table 3 to 4 times because these are personal questions where responses will inevitably vary, and the questions may be repeated. Questions of the day will include: state your full legal name. What color are your eyes? What is your country of birth? What is your home address? What is your date of birth? When did you get your green card or become a permanent resident? Students will be corrected on their pronunciation and practice it until they improve, but this will be pretty informal. We won't harp on it too much. The idea is getting exposure to these questions and getting used to answering them. And the idea is that eventually pronunciation will improve over time. So for example, if I ask a student, what color are your eyes? And they respond blue, meaning blue, I'll repeat back to them very clearly, blue, showing the way my mouth moves, blue, and they will repeat blue back to me. We'll do this a few times. I'll invite the rest of the class to jump in saying blue, blue, and then we'll move on. For the next 45 minutes or so after this activity, I'll quiz the students on their civics questions. For those who aren't familiar with the citizenship exam, there's a general bank of 100 questions from which any applicant will be asked 10 random questions. In order to pass this portion, they have to get 6 right. So questions of the day will include things like, name one U.S. territory. Why does the flag have 13 stripes? What is the name of the national anthem? What is the capital of the United States? What is the economic system of the United States? What ocean is on the west coast of the United States, etc. Each student will be asked a different question since there's only one correct answer. If the student does not know the answer, other students will be invited to answer. And we'll go around the table 3 or 4 times, however much time we have, depending on, do we need to repeat a certain question? Of course, along the way, I'll write on the board if necessary, or we'll work on pronunciation as we go. Then, with a 2-hour class, I think it's a good idea. Let the students take a 10-minute break, 15-minute break. And when they return, they'll be given a worksheet with 2 sides, and they'll be asked to work on one side individually for 15 minutes. This worksheet is going to ask them to read, comprehend, and write in English, but it's also going to be focused specifically on the content of this citizenship exam. At the end of about 15 minutes or so, we'll split into 2 groups where students are paired with a partner who did the opposite side of the worksheet from them. And they will quiz one another on the side of the worksheet that they completed. So if I completed side 1 of the worksheet and my partner then would have completed side 2 of the worksheet, I would quiz my partner on side 2. My partner would quiz me on side 1. The side of the sheet that they did not do will be homework, and or they'll have time at the end of the class to work on that as well. I will walk around and help students and their groups with pronunciation and answers, and after a few minutes, we'll return to large group discussion where I will quiz students on the entire worksheet, and they will be invited to shout out their answer. We'll write the answers on the board and discuss as difficulties arise. For example, name one U.S. territory obviously has several correct responses, so we may discuss that a little bit. We may go back over some of those details about what is a U.S. territory. What is the economic system of the United States is another example. I know there are 2 acceptable answers for the exam for that question. One, you can say it is a capitalist economy, or you can say it's a market economy. Either way, those are both considered correct. And so, again, we'll write the multiplicity of answers on the board and discuss and work on pronunciation as we go. The remaining class time will be talk time in English only, and I'll also be asking the students some questions about their weekend, etc. As part of the interview portion of the citizenship exam, they do ask questions like, how did you get here? Did you come alone? Where, obviously understanding those questions is kind of like small talky. And that side of the interview, the interviewer is basically looking for understanding, comprehension, and proper English response. This will be for more speaking practice. If students don't want to talk, they can also work on the other side of their worksheet. So to give a little bit of an idea of what that looks like, I have a worksheet here that that I got from a workbook. There's a lot of resources for this online, luckily. So for example, here's one side of the worksheet. It's on history. And down here you'll see we have a word bank, or a phrase bank, I should say, that kind of gives them hints to the correct answers here. So here we have questions such as who lived here first. The citizenship exam will accept American Indians or Native American Indians as a correct response. Down here in the word bank, we do have full phrases. So for this first question, who lived here first, the full phrase, American Indians lived here first, is suggested as the response, and we will focus on that just to get additional practice in for both speaking and writing those answers out in full sentence form. The other side of this worksheet is about the United States. Find the answers. Again, you'll see we have a phrase bank that will kind of give hints or clues to these answers up here. Obviously, on the test, there is no phrase bank, and I had my share of teachers in high school and college that would say things like, there's no phrase bank in life, But I think at this level, especially, we're going through the quarter, there's a lot of questions, a lot of memorization involved. I would want to start off, at least in worksheet form, with the phrase bank. And then, obviously, when we're quizzing each other, we don't have anything like that in front of us. But it helps. I think that's an additional thing they have to read in order to place the answer in the correct space. So here we have questions such as how many states are in the United States, and the correct answer down here would be the United States has 50 states, etc. And we would work through this together, as I said. So Hopefully that was informative. Hopefully you understand. Hopefully I was able to explain kind of the lesson plan for the day and demonstrate the activity accordingly. And I look forward to discussing this with you guys on the discussion boards. Thank you.